computer. Okay. G'day, everyone. Speaking to Mike Williams, No Holds Barred podcast, truck driver, transport personality, and all-round good guy.
All-round good guy.
Yep.
How about that?
How are you, Mike?
I'm all right, Steve. How are you?
Good, mate. People might remember Mike was helping out at the end of the drought before the fires, trying to get water to people. And he was on. You're on Channel 7, yeah, on Sunrise.
I was on Sunrise there once, and but I spent a lot of time on Sky with Chris Smith on his various things he was doing on Sky, and when Chris started his new series at the start of the year, at the start of December there, I helped open his starting show. Chris actually went out to Barradine and Coonabarabran with me when we took our 600,000 odd litres of water out there. There's still videos of it on YouTube and all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Mm. And then we had the fires.
We did.
And then we've had coronavirus.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, mate.
and we've had civil unrest about racism, allegedly.
Yeah.
And now we're getting back to the transport inquiry that the Senate is holding is coming back.
Yeah.
So he tells me hopefully by the end of July, but
yeah,
the Queensland Premier doesn't want to open the border yet.
Yeah, when I was talking to Glenn Stirl the other day, he was saying to me he's looking to get it back on as soon as he can. And we had a very good chat, him and I, about a few things. And without full disclosure, Glenn and I have been on the other side of the fence a few times, and but this time I'm coming around to seeing things more from his point of view, and certainly yours as well.
Mm.
There are a lot of things that need to be done, and I've got every intention of putting my shoulder to the wheel and helping out get some things done, or at least if we can't get anything done, getting people talking about it so we can find out what can be done.
Well, 2020 has been a shocking year for truck driver fatalities. 30 guys killed this year so far, 3 in the first 10 days. So it's surely something to be recognised.
Well, if the amount of deaths that we're having in the transport industry were happening in any other industry, there would be some sort of a high-level inquiry about it, and certainly recommendations, and certainly following on from that, remedial action being taken.
Mm.
I can't believe that we've gone on as long as we've gone with the number of deaths that we've had, and these things keep getting recorded as traffic accidents and misreported and misdirection and all that sort of thing. Real guys with real families are dying in real workplace incidents, and I think it's about time that was recognised and something done about it, to the point where some rules need to be changed, I think, for the benefit of everyone. So,
yeah. I've had a rough go with it. The legislative reforms that we tried to implement in 2013 to 2016, I don't think we'll be able to repeat them. And so my personal opinion about the legislative reforms is that part of it's a waste of time, and that there is things that we can do that are real, that we can do in real time, like building parking bays where they need to be built. Like, we can do that today. You could start building parking bays where they need to be built. You don't have to have a forum. You don't have to have a council. You don't have to have a committee. You can award contracts and start creating them. Easy.
Well, we do have to be realistic, though, Steve. We do have to have the approval of the council, and there does have to be a lot of input from certain people, landowners and things like that. On Crown land, it's a different story, of course. But the fact of the matter is that there's several things that has to happen. We can't get the cart before the horse.
Well, where there's a conflict of law between state and federal, the federal always trumps state.
Well, it should, yeah.
But I mean, that is the law. Where there is a conflict between federal and state, the federal law always supersedes state law. And so with the national inquiry, with the federal inquiry, it's able to address all these things in the states and the councils and all that in one go. But each council and each state has a Parkin Bay missing.
Oh,
So
there's no doubt about that. You've only got to drive up and down the road. I mean, if you know, on the roads that I know well, you know, I know where the parking bays are on the roads that I know well, and but I don't always drive on the roads that I know well. And the problem with it is that, you know, we can't know, you know, every safe place to pull up. Now, our friend Rod Hannafy did a great deal to address that with his Green Dot initiative that he got going. But having said that, this points out places where you can pull up. It doesn't point out places where you can get, you know, facilities. And I think Tony, and I can't bring his name to mind, second name, Tony Truck Tones, Tony.
Tones Trucking Stories.
Yeah,
Tony
he's got that. Yeah, that's him. That's the one.
Yeah,
he's got his podcast, bloody
is
app
it
going
application? Yeah,
his app going at the moment with bits and pieces of information. There is another one floating around too that I've heard about. These sort of things are all handy, but they don't alleviate the problems of the fact the number of guys that need to stop. You know, and the coronavirus thing has really highlighted exactly how limited the facilities are and the places where you can go and get a feed and all the rest of it. And you know, I do a thing on Twitter called A Minute with Mick, and sometimes it goes for much longer than that, unfortunately, because there's more to say. But you know, I had a thing there where I talked about some poor guy over at the M4 in Sydney who couldn't get anything to eat. They wouldn't let him go inside into the fast food joint there to get anything to eat, and he couldn't let anyone go through the driveway, the drive-through for him, because they wouldn't serve him for him. And he couldn't walk up to the drive-through because that's not safe. And you know, he couldn't get a shower, couldn't get anything. And we're expected to do our job. And I sometimes wonder, you know, and I could go on about this for hours, Steve. How long have you got, mate?
Well, I mean, look, people are slowly getting the information. I mean, every truck driver knows the conditions, and they soon find out if they don't, if they're fresh.
Yeah.
But the thing about agitating people to get involved and to come along and have a spray at the people that deserve it is the people with the power to bring about all these changes, right? But I'll go into what I wanted to show you.
Yep, okay.
And I know we've talked about this before.
We've talked about lots of stuff, you and I.
We'll go into the Human Rights Report. Just let me share the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see?
I can't see the screen.
Can you see this?
No, well, I've got yours and my ugly dials on the screen. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights. I've got it now, yep.
Okay, yeah. Now, the 38th report of the 44th Parliament in the 3rd of May in 2016.
Yep.
You go down. That was by the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights and printed by the Senate Printing Unit.
Yeah.
Membership of the committee, Philip Ruddock, everyone remembers him, Laurie Ferguson, Carol Brown, David Gillespie, Kathy McGowan, Nick McKim, Claire Moore, James Patterson, Dean Smith, and Michael Sukar.
Yeah.
Now, look, we've got Tasmania, New South Wales, excuse me, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia. They're all there. There's no one from South Australia or the Northern Territory, but look here, we've got these secretariats, and the functions of the committee was to examine the bill and legislative instruments that come before either House of Parliament for compatibility with human rights and report to both Houses of Parliament on that issue. So we'll go down a bit. And the analytical framework about their obligations under the United Nations Human Rights Treaties and how we are a signatory to the Declaration of Human Rights, and that we have the right to be subject not to torture, cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment, the right not to be subject to slavery, the right not to be imprisoned or inability to fill a contract, the right not to be subject to retrospective criminal laws, and the right to recognition as a person. All right?
Before the law.
Okay. Now, if you've watched my episode Driver's Rights and Responsibilities under Section 570 and 588, have you watched that?
No, I haven't. I haven't had a chance. Sorry.
As a responsible person under the HNVL,
Yep.
As a responsible person, you do not have the right to remain silent. It is an offence not to answer a question. It's a $16,000 fine, or a $6,000 fine for each question you do not answer. You have the right to take a lawyer with you, but the lawyer will advise you that you must answer the questions. You do not have the right to remain silent. A false and misleading answer is an offence. So that's published on my channel as well. So anyway, we'll go down here. Of course, this report doesn't deal with just the repeal of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal. So it goes through the preamble and all the other things, what they've gone through before, the Migration Act and all these other things to show it's legit.
Just, can I just interrupt for a second? I just want my listeners who can't see the video of what we're actually doing. We're scrolling through this document that Steve's highlighted, and we're finding the appropriate bits that we want to discuss on the document. The Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal Repeal Bill of 2016 is where we're at now. And I think this is the bit that you wanted to talk about, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing that no one's ever heard, because no one goes and reads human rights reports.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
I know I've certainly never bothered with it. So.
They're hard to find. They're hard to understand. And for someone that hasn't read one before, so if I read it and explain it to you, and people listening can have a look and also understand exactly how they removed our human rights, because it says the purpose of the Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Bill, it sought to repeal the Act in order to abolish the Road Safety Tribunal and repeal the Road Safety Act, abolish all the orders made by the tribunal. And it granted the Minister for Employment the power to make rules dealing with transitional arrangements, and it measures the raising human rights concerns or issues are set out below.
Yeah, just scroll back though to make it clear for my listeners that the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal and the orders were all about remuneration and minimum rates of pay, and those orders were repealed as a result of this bill. It wasn't this bill. It was part. This was part of it, wasn't it?
This is a report after the fact.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what led up to it. This is the report on the aftermath. This is our 9/11 document, right?
Right.
This is our 9/11 commission, right? When the plane went into the tower and it all went down, and then they had all the commission and all that stuff.
This is the Warren report.
This is ours, okay?
Right.
So leading up to everything, you can lay blame wherever, right?
Yeah.
We've all got our opinions on who and how and what went on. Okay,
yep.
But this is basically how the tower came down.
Right.
Okay, so the Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Bill was introduced and passed by both Houses of Parliament on the 18th of April 2016, receiving royal assent on the 19th of April and becoming the Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Act 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The Road Safety Remuneration Amendment Protecting Owner Drivers Bill 2016 was also introduced on 18th of April 2016 and seeks to suspend the operation of the Contractor Driver Minimum Payments Order 2016. Now, that is the order that the government and the corporate transport companies banded together under Nat Road to challenge in the High Court of Australia.
Yeah, and to be clear, this was one of the items that triggered the double dissolution election.
It was,
and this was Malcolm Turnbull's government that did this.
That's right.
Okay, just to be clear, because people have short memories, and
that's right.
I want to get it out there. That's the case.
Yeah,
and
we had 4 prime ministers under the Road Safety Remuneration Act 2012. It started with Julia Gillard, then it went to Tony Abbott, then it went to Malcolm Turnbull. Oh no, then it went to Kevin. Went to Kevin Rudd.
That's right.
And then to Tony Abbott, and then to Malcolm Turnbull. Sorry.
Yeah, what a roller coaster that was. What a screaming shit show, in my opinion. But anyway, let's keep moving.
Yeah. Okay. So the abolition of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal orders under 1.19, the Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Act repealed the act, and all orders made. 2 orders were made by the RSRT, which are now no longer in effect. The first one, the Road Transport and Distribution and Long Distance Operations Road Safety Remuneration Order number 1, and the Contractor Driver Minimum Payments Road Safety Remuneration Order 2016 Order number 2.
Which was the one that everyone had the issue with.
That's right.
Yep.
Now, I had a hand in both of those.
Yep.
I attended numerous meetings and facilitated conferences and hearings and mentions and all that stuff. The primary human rights issue raised by the legislation is right to just and favourable conditions of work, and what is the focus of the committee's analysis. So the right to just and favourable conditions of work are protected by Articles 6.1.7.8.1a of the International Covenant of Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, which we all know. Of course, everyone knows that, don't they?
Look, I can pull that information straight out of my bum.
It's on the back of every cigarette packet.
That's right.
The right to work may be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law and compatible with the nature of the right, and solely for the purpose of promoting the general welfare in a democratic society. Well, we all agree with that because that sounds all good. As set out above, prior to its abolition, the Road Safety Remuneration Repeal Act and the RSRT made 2 orders. Order 1 set out certain minimum conditions, but not minimum payments for contractor drivers in the described industries of transport for supermarkets and long-distance operations. Order 2 set out the minimum rates of pay for contractor drivers in the described industries. The orders promoted the right to just and favourable conditions of work as they improved, through the imposition of minimum standards of conditions and payments, the wages and working conditions of contractors in the described industries. The orders also sought to improve the occupational health and safety of contractors in the industry. In particular, the orders sought to change the way payments were structured in order to address economic factors that create an incentive for truck drivers to drive fast, work long hours, use illicit substances to stay awake. These economic factors include low rates of pay, incentive-based payment methods such as the kilometre per rate method, unpaid working time and demurrage. Other factors include the hyper-competitive nature of the industry and the low bargaining power faced by drivers, which everyone knows. These are common things. You can listen to them repeated by all of the witnesses to the Senate so far.
Yeah.
They've all mentioned it.
And every truck driver since I've been involved in trucks has always said that these are the same issues. I was talking to Barry Grimson, and for those of you who don't remember who Barry Grimson is, he's one of the guys that helped start the blockade of Razorback back in 1979, along with a few other fellas. These issues were issues back then, and when I talked to Barry about it, he said these issues are the ones that are still but yet to be addressed. And for that, look, without pulling too many punches, I blame the TWU for the fact that these things aren't addressed, or they at least hold part of the problem, part of the blame. That and the fact that with a disintegrated industry, as it says there, the low bargaining power faced by drivers. Yep. Individuals can't influence these things. Even as an owner driver, when I own my own trucks, I couldn't influence what the rates were unless I chose to not work for them.
That's right.
And if I chose to not work for those rates, and I've got several classic examples of that, things that I know about personally that actually happened to me and my trucks at the time that I'm perfectly happy to share. Instances where we didn't get work because I refused to move for the amount of money that they wanted to pay, and other companies came and just did the work for that rate. You can't win.
No.
You can't win in that environment. And I understand that was what the RSRT was about addressing. Unfortunately, as I said to you earlier, and I've said from days past, the problem with that was that second order was that things weren't addressed evenly across the board. And unfortunately, I think that was the view that was held by the people that opposed it.
And therein lies the problem: is that A, they're not lawyers. B,
indeed.
B, they weren't there.
No, we weren't.
C, they didn't read it.
That's right.
And D, their outrage is triggered before A.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And so
I get all that. Get all that, and that's why I'm coming to your side of
yeah. I mean, it's here. They make vague references to the committee considers that removing a negative economic impact on owner drivers and small transport operators may just be a legitimate objective for the purpose of having international human rights law in the first place.
Yeah.
But to demonstrate the limitation is permissible, proponents of legislation must provide reasoned and evidence-based explanations as why the measures are necessary in pursuit of legitimate objective. The Attorney General's Department's guidance on the preparation of statements of compatibility states that the existence of a legitimate objective must be identified clearly with supporting reasons and generally empirical data.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say...
Just before you go on to say, I'd just like to point out to my listeners that we are quoting directly from the document.
Exactly.
These are not our words. These are words from this document.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not our opinion. It's not our guess. These are the words from the document.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Steve. Sorry to interrupt.
Right.
Because my listeners can't see what we're doing, I wanted to make sure that they all understand what's going on.
Yeah. There'll be a link in the description to this human rights report. But 1.31 says, in terms of the financial impact of the orders, little information is provided in the statement of compatibility to explain because they'd lost in the High Court. They had no evidence. It was all hyperbole and theatre. And they failed to provide evidence to support the statement that the orders would have a negative impact on the road transport industry, particularly on the viability of owner drivers and small transport operators. The statement of compatibility explains that overwhelmingly the industry, including owner drivers and small road transport business, opposed the orders, but it did not provide a detailed description of those stakeholders nor their particular interest in the orders. The statement of compatibility noted that 800 submissions were presented to the RSRT. However, those submissions covered a wide range of views and not all were opposed to the orders. The RSRT undertook research and consultation as well as public hearings between 2012 and 2015, both prior to and following the publication of Draft Order 2. The RSRT's published a significant amount of research material, including currently applicable minimum rates, and commissioned and published a KPMG report containing a cost model of minimum payments. And further in explaining how it arrived at the payments rate order, the RSRT stated that the minimum payments order under any RSRO in these trip examples, even though they exclude rest time payments, are less than the trip rates at which witnesses indicated they may substitute contractors' drivers for employee drivers. Now, they would say it was...
What does that mean? Let's just expand on that because that's a very important point that you're bringing out there.
Yeah.
Can we have an interpretation from you of what you believe that actually means?
Well, it goes on to say, in order to justify it as pursuing a legitimate objective, more information could be provided to explain the economic impact of the RSRT orders and the reasons why it would financially harm contractor drivers, notwithstanding the research and consultation undertaken by the RSRT. So while I got to see all the evidence at the time and read it, and when they came in to say that these rates were incompatible with the model that they're working with right now, or at the time, and that they would be able to substitute, they would be able to remove owner drivers and increase their fleet size. Right, so remove their subcontractors. That they indicated they may substitute contractors for employees. So what they were saying is,
so who was saying that though?
In the statement of compatibility, the against the for the repeal side. So so the corporate members of the ATA, the corporate members of Nat Road, the corporate members of the ALC, who are the Federation Employers, the Trades Council, the the Retail Traders Industrial Organisation, the Chamber of Commerce from each state, the Master Builders Association, and then you have a look at how all their lobbying power. So what they were saying was that they may substitute contractor drivers for employees, but of course, they wouldn't be able to operate their model without subcontractors doing the work, because the primary contractor contracts out high, and then it skims the cream and gives the work to the subcontractors. And because they have to skim the cream because their operating costs are higher than an owner driver. An owner driver has his truck, his trailer, his pay, insurance, all that kind of stuff. One person. And Toll has.
He's not running a whole support network.
That's right. He's not running a forklift. He's not running sheds with electricity. He's not providing smoko sheds and all that kind of training and security guards and all those costs. So they have to skim their margin. So in order to justify, what they did was to tell everyone they were going to lose their jobs. And so, they had PricewaterhouseCoopers do a report and stuff like that into what had gone on. It's all very biased and that kind of stuff, because they paid for the research to be done in that way. So
who paid for the research though?
Well, I mean, we haven't even seen a lot of it, but the government in power at the time engaged these law firms and the corporate members, these lobby groups, the ATA, Nat Road, all the corporate groups.
So the short story of it is that you and me and blokes like me and blokes that own trucks, the fellas that are actually, and I hate the term at the coalface, but the fellas that are actually doing the work, and the owner drivers, single owner drivers and all that sort of stuff, didn't really get much of an influence on any of this stuff. It was all paid for by the high-powered groups in the industry.
At the end, yeah. At the end, it was. But look, there was 5 owner drivers, 6 owner drivers. Sorry. So you got Frank Black. Everyone knows Frank, right? He was the owner driver rep for the union. Then
he's also a big part of the TWU, and
he was the owner driver representative on the ATA too for a long time.
Yep.
Then there was Jerry. What's that?
He still is an owner driver rep on the ATA.
I'm not sure. I know he's still active doing things. I think he's in the ATA. Yeah. But then Jerry Brown he filed the original application to bring about a road safety order for road transport.
Yeah.
So under his business Intercapital Trucking, and he was supported by Graham Garner, who's an owner driver, Stephen Mellicar, who's an owner-driver, Robbie Mitchell, who's an owner-driver, and there was a couple of guys behind the scenes that were pushing things, and these guys that have been at it for, 40, 50 years trying to change it behind the scenes, talking with these guys. And
Jerry's been at it for years. Bunny Brooks been at it for years, but you think of a name that anyone would know in the transport industry, and they've all been behind reform for years, and we've all been banging our head on the pavement. It's just, we don't seem as though we get a look in.
Well, I mean, really. At the time, the first time when I turned up, right, because I'd never been to a federal, Fair Work Australia hearing or anything like that. Never been there. So when you walk in, it's kind of like a courtroom, and there's conference table, and there's all these lawyers with their suits and their briefcases, and then the president or the vice president comes in, and you've got to, stand up, and then you've got to make your appearance in front of everyone, in front of them, in the capacity that you're there, and then you've got to argue your point. And I mean, there was 3 applications. There was one from the union, one from Jerry, and one from me, right? So we're on one side, and all the opposition was on the other side, and they would make trouble by delaying, and the way that they would speak it would take 20 minutes for them to make their point. And it would be a waste of time getting to the end of it. Whatever they'd say, one of us on this side would have a common sense answer, and that would end that conversation. But they'd won by taking half an hour to waste our time to argue a point that made no sense and had nothing to do with it. And so they took that as a victory. Every day that they could slow down the process, make us come back another time, have another meeting, decide that they would have to go and have their own meeting on their own without us to discuss their strategy, and they would be given an adjournment to do that. And so we got our fair hearing. I got my fair hearing. I got to tear shreds off them and, flick their switches and make them angry and all that kind of stuff, and make them look like gooses in front of the president and in front of their colleagues and that kind of stuff, because these guys are in a career. They've made a career out of it. So they don't care. If it takes 2 weeks to argue something and they lose, they don't care. They got their money. Their advice that they've received is to drag it out. We'll change the government. The government will change. Don't agree to anything, all this kind of stuff. And so they would say they were going to provide evidence, and then they wouldn't. We would wait for the evidence, and then it wouldn't show up. And so despite all those odds and not having a legal representative, I thought we won, because, in my second submission to this Senate inquiry, when the draft order came out for the rates, it was public and people could comment and make their own suggestions. Let me see. Where are we? Desktop. No, it's not it.
The short story of it is, though, with all the delays and all the rest of it, you weren't being paid to be there, were you? A lot of the people that were making applications weren't being paid to be there. You were.
Oh, no. It was, we didn't get paid to do it. It was free to be there. It was free to apply, but no one paid me. No one paid Jerry. It was, you could make an application.
Yeah.
It was free as long as you were fall under the definition of a road transport driver. Then you could apply to vary any of the orders. I mean, the thing is that the tribunal was set up to look at the entire industry, so they had an inquiry into the cash in transit, and so all the Armaguard and Prosegur and Linfox Armaguard, you know, cash truckies, what you call them, you know,
Yeah.
they're delivering cash to the bank. These armed guards, right? Now the RSRT held an inquiry into their paying conditions, right? And whether or not they were being remunerated properly for the work that they do, and they looked at all the armed robberies and all the things that affect those workers. And so they had that inquiry. That the RSRT also held an inquiry, wanted to hold a inquiry into the livestock transport sector. And it was actually the first annual work program was into the livestock sector. And the livestock sector said, no, we're good. We don't need help. And so it went through. They didn't make an order about the livestock sector, and then they went and looked into the long distance sector. And they, in the 5th annual work program, they were going to look into the ports and wharf sector, so that, you know, all the subbies working on the wharf would have been, you know, remunerated and have all their conditions looked at by someone, like in particular at that particular wedge of the pie. But I mean, it was a big thing for them to take it from us. I mean, it cost them a lot of money to fight it. They had to file high court money, which is $200,000 filing fee. You know, where do you come up with that? It's nothing.
So I don't know. The reality of it is they threw so many resources at you to stop you from proceeding. And the other thing about it is too that if they can drag it out for long enough, you can't sit there for free forever. You've got to at some point walk away. And if you don't have some sort of a backing or something supporting you, then you can't stay there and maintain the battle. That's the problem, and they know that, and that's what they do. That's how it works.
The trouble with endless arbitration is that the guys are getting killed every week. So I would go the first time I went along, right? I'd go along and I didn't say much because I was just observing and I was a bit nervous and I didn't know the procedure and the protocols. And so I got to talk last. And I was like, I can't believe that this is how it is in here. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Really. Honestly, you should be ashamed of yourselves. There's been like, I don't know what it was at the time. It was like 20 guys killed this year or something. And so they adjourned the conference or the hearing or whatever. And so they set another one for next month. Then you go along and when it was my turn, I would, okay, like, remember we were here last month and I said it was 20. Well, now it's 30.
Yeah.
You had to look around like, oh, shit, what was I saying now? Like, and then the shame of it would tone down their language because they would go in there with their legal speak and we're representing the corporate interests of the Japanese Postal Service and Linfox and all these other billion-dollar companies. And the only person that's talking about the guys getting killed and injured on the road was me. And so, but after a few months, I got jack of that because it never seemed to do anything. Like, it didn't seem to be getting anywhere. There was no consensus between both sides, and they kept sending us away to come back and have a different position, right? Which is really, really frustrating for someone like me that sees a trip to Perth as that you get to Perth and your mission is to get there. Well, the mission in the tribunal was to make change that was actually going to make a difference to my work, because I would leave the tribunal and get in the truck and I'd go to Melbourne or go to Adelaide or whatever.
Wherever you.
These and same with the owner drivers. They either had their trucks at Uncle Leo's or somewhere, or they'd fly up from Melbourne, like not work, spend their own money on a flight and a motel and everything else, and then fly back and then jump in the truck and go to work or whatever. And so, but these barristers, they'd walk out of the RSRT and they'd go across to the New South Wales, commission, Fair Work Commission or whatever they call it there, and they'd argue, this and that against compensation payouts and this kind of stuff for, they represent their corporation in all the other litigation, right? So these teams of lawyers would be against us. And then when they'd have their meetings, like if I couldn't make a meeting, if I was, I don't know, somewhere, I just couldn't be there, then I'd turn up the next day. If I couldn't make the first day, I'd make sure I'd be there the second day, and I'd walk in and I'd say, what happened yesterday? And the answer would just be, not much.
Mm.
And that would be the entire transfer of information of what happened the day before to an applicant would be not much. That's it.
Right.
And
so moving on. I mean, this is getting a bit dry, Steve.
It's very boring. Very boring. Look, transport politics is very boring. People don't want it. People don't have time to be involved and know all the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
it's very boring.
So where are we going? I mean, Glenn Sterle's got his Transport Inquiry podcast, which is what you've named. Sorry, not the inquiry, rather. Yep. You've named your podcast after that.
Mm.
I understand the objective of your podcast is to basically commentate that inquiry.
Mm.
Glenn has said to me that he's going to get the thing back on the road as soon as he can, and he's invited me to make a submission, which I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you plan to be there for it, and I know that there are many other people that plan to be there for it. Now, the sad reality of it is that Glenn's government's not in power, even though Glenn does hold a seat at the table. Now, I know that Tony Sheldon is also a senator these days, and there are probably a couple of other senators who would be on board with certain discussions about the transport industry. They're not all stupid, but you have to wonder, given the voting record of some of them, what's going on and what can be achieved.
Well, look, some of them, I mean, all of them get extra money to be on a committee, right? Yep. So there's that. But Jackie Lambie didn't need to cross the floor to vote. She did. Pauline Hanson's showing interest. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, when was the last time you've seen a media article that the Senate's holding an inquiry into the most dangerous industry in Australia? Never. They don't.
I haven't seen that. No,
they don't.
No, I haven't seen it.
But
there haven't been a lot of even from the times of the Quinlan report. I mean, there's not been a lot of information presented about the industry and the effects. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a listen to what you posted there the other day, because I couldn't catch it on live. I was working.
Oh, the NTI webinar.
The NTI webinar, and I grabbed a couple of stills off that while I was listening to it, and I posted them on my social media. It intrigues me. I mean, NTI, for those who don't know, are probably one of the largest, if not the largest, commercial vehicle insurer in Australia, and they collate data. Obviously, the data they collate is for them to assess the risks of various sectors of the industry and to basically set their premiums and all that sort of stuff. Now, there are a lot of numbers in that, and I'd like to talk about this for a bit if we can. There are a lot of numbers in there that really just blew me away. No one likes to talk about things like suicide, for example. But the rates that NTI suggest, the percentage of people is 38% or something, 37, 38%?
39.8% of vehicle crashes involving a car and a truck show suicide by truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I personally know 2 truck drivers that's happened to, where a vehicle's deliberately crossed the centre lane and run into them. There was a case on the southeastern freeway several years ago now, many years ago now, where a guy jumped off in front of a truck and was killed by the truck. We had one, I think it was Mawson Lakes the other day in Adelaide. I mean, these sort of things, that's a terrible thing to do. And these sort of, the driver, in fact, may or may not be injured in those cases, but the impact on them mentally is something that just seems to be swept under the carpet. The number, I often wonder, if the amount of single vehicle truck rollovers or truck accidents where they've had a significant accident, where they've run into something, really solid, and that you're not going to survive if you hit it in a truck. I often wonder if they're not suicides by the drivers. Now, I know it's a tough subject to get your head around. There's a hell of a lot of pressure in this game sometimes. And I am not one of those people that I don't think it's in me to do that. But I'll tell you what, there have been times in my life in this industry where the pressure's been that high, you don't know where the next load's coming from. You don't know when you're going to get paid. You don't know. When I was an owner driver, this is. And, the payment's got to be made. The mechanic's got to be paid. The fuel company's got to be paid. And your house payment's got to be made. And your partner's there. Your kids have got to go to school still. The food doesn't. The food bills have got to be paid. Now, all this sort of stuff, and it's all on you. And the pressures are just astronomical. And I appreciate that that's what the RSRT was all about addressing.
Well,
but the fact of the matter is that NTI are looking at all these things and the rates of the accidents and all that sort of stuff, and they say that it's coming down. They say that we're getting better.
Yeah.
No,
they're not. Oh, they're not. I mean, the trend of truck driver fatalities since 2012 went up, then went down, and then since 2016, it's just gone up.
Yeah.
And that is because they removed the conditions that were brought in under Order Number 1.
Oh, you and I could have an argument about that, Steve.
So,
really.
I mean, the statistics show that in the year of the implementation, that the truck driver fatalities started to go down, and they went down until 2016, and then from the date of the repeal, they went up because the pressure was off corporations and back onto the drivers. Like it's all going to come out in the inquiry, all this stuff, that the liquidators reports, the administrators reports, drivers' wages, superannuation, all this stuff's coming out. All these drivers are going to have their own personal issues and their own barriers that they want to push. And I mean, that's why I don't have one particular barrier that I'm pushing other than what's in my submissions. And there's a lot in there because there's more than one thing that I want.
Yeah.
But if I can get you and you can get someone and someone can get someone else, and then by the time this report's done, I mean, we don't need the government to be empowered we don't need a government to be empowered to show them that they're doing it the wrong way and have them change their ways.
No, this is
true. We
can
do that now, but
we don't need a particular government to be empowered to build better parking bays and facilities.
No. But I mean, we are entering the information wasteland now with the end of big rigs.
Yes, that's a bit of sad news for me because I don't know. You're probably aware that I wrote.
Yeah, me too. I sent my last contribution in yesterday.
Yeah.
So it'll be in the final pages.
Yeah.
And when you think about what started the Murdoch empire, was a 25-page, 8,000-word letter to the Prime Minister, and it changed the history of Australia forever. he saved thousands of lives of soldiers in Gallipoli. He changed the way Australian soldiers were commanded in the field, and he brought a great amount of shame to the people that orchestrated the deaths of those soldiers in Gallipoli, right? With the Gallipoli letter. Now, the power that his journalism brought to bring about change at the highest level of government, right? To influence a war. Now, he earned us the right to free speech and free journalism, and now the dollar has decided that the soldiers of the road war don't have a voice anymore.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate. I mean, I'm going to be using my platform to push the view as much as I can. But, I'm sort of living in the hope that someone will pick up big rigs and keep it going, but it's not looking very promising. So that's the word that I have at the moment. But we do need to have a. If we can't have a Big Rigs magazine, we at least need to have a Big Rigs podcast, I think. And I don't know how we can go about that either.
Well, I mean, my podcast, the Transport Inquiry podcast, is going to come to an end. It has an end date. I don't plan to keep it going after much more than my contribution. Like, I'm a witness to the Senate, so with my published submissions, when the hearings come on, they're live streamed from the Parliament's website, so everyone can listen in the truck or from home or whatever. And then we'll record them and we'll publish them just like all the others. So, I mean, the witness list that we were supposed to speak was Trevor Warner, then me, then a few other people on the 16th of March. So when we come back, hopefully we've encouraged more people to get on the list and be a witness and go along and tell them straight to their face. And that way you've earned the right to speak out. If you drive trucks, you've earned the right to have your opinion heard by people that don't know what it is, what we do, but have the power to change how we do it.
The trouble with it is, I think, Steve, it's always been the case, and you and I are both fully aware that if you drive and you're on trip money and all the rest of it, you're only getting paid for what you do. And so if you turn around and decide that you want to go and do something, your boss will say, yeah, mate, you go your hardest. I'll just throw someone else in the truck for a few days while you go and play. But you won't be getting anything for it. And that's the downside. And then you come across the stark reality, like I said, that, the bills need to be paid at home, and, the kids have still got to go to school, and there's still got to be a feed put on the table. And it just makes it hard for ordinary blokes to get there and have any sort of positive influence. And as I spoke with James Graham about several weeks ago now, that the reality of it is that there's the perception amongst your average drivers that it really doesn't matter what they go and say to an inquiry anyway. Because if Linfox don't want it, Toll don't want it, the ATA don't want it, NatRoad don't want it, all these power players in the industry don't want it, Ron Finnemore and all the rest of it. If they don't want it, then it's not going to happen. And so as an individual owner driver with one or two trucks, the only thing I've got to lose is A, the time for going there, but B, the fact that I might piss someone like Lindsay Fox off and they'll say, well, don't give that bloke any more work.
That's right.
And you and I both know that happens.
That's right. Well, the whistleblower...
I'm not accusing Lindsay Fox of that. I'm just saying, Lindsay's got very deep pockets. Sorry, Lindsay, if I've offended you, mate. But that's the way it works.
There's a lot of money to be made in keeping the status quo, right?
There is.
You can't. Look, and the thing is, right, you got to understand what would make them want to come out and challenge something, right? It's either in their own interest, right? They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart, right? Now, Toll didn't come out and say, we can't do this because we're going to put 30,000 owner drivers out of work. No, it was, they are going to shift the power from us to them, and we don't want that. Right? Now, when an owner driver is offering a better service, right, for a more competitive rate, right,
Yeah.
that is what the RSRT did, right? It created the level playing field that everyone said they wanted.
Well, we
And
could have a
and
discussion about that too.
it also, well, it's uneven at the moment, right? Because employee drivers have the award, right?
Mhm.
Now, what road safety remuneration order number 2 was an award for owner drivers,
Yeah.
which would put everyone on the same playing field. The
Yeah,
owner drivers would receive at least for no matter how much work they did, they would at least receive cost recovery.
Well, that's I understand your point of view saying that sort of thing, but the reality of it was, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, I know, but my interpretation of what was said at the time, and to be fair, it's still my belief of the way it was that there were going to be set rates that were going to be needed to be paid, and set timeframes that were going to need to be made, and the whole backloading discussion that there ever used to be was going to be removed. Now the problem with it was, look, far be it from me to say, look, I know, having paid the bills, that it doesn't cost you any less to drive the truck from Melbourne to Sydney than it costs you to drive from Sydney back to Melbourne.
That's right.
But the rates for both of those trips are completely different.
That's right.
Now, I don't know what the rates are today, and I was more familiar with the rates between Melbourne and Adelaide. Back in the day when I was doing it, you could get, $800 or something to come back from Adelaide back to Melbourne with a B double plus GST, and it was anything up to $1,800 to go across from Melbourne to Adelaide, 796 kilometres. And the reality of it was that if you put a heavy load on your truck, like a load of bottled soft drink or something like that out of Adelaide to bring it back, climbing up through all the hills, you actually burnt more fuel, paid more time, wasted more time, paid more in tolls because they all went out to the other side of Melbourne, out around all the tolls and all that stuff. Actually cost you money to do that load. And they're talking about, and that's one of the highlighted examples. I knocked back one of those loads. I went and put it on. I couldn't believe it.
Here's the thing, right, about the taxi industry, right? Now
We're not in the taxi industry,
no, but you get in the taxi, right, and it says $1.50 kilometre, right, or whatever it is, $1.80 kilometre. Now
there's the flag fall and the waiting time, and
that's
it's all
right.
Right. Meter.
Now you either accept that price
or you don't,
or you walk, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is what they did to the road transport industry: was make it. There's the flag fall. There's the minimum rate, which is you will not lose money. You will get a certain amount per kilometre if the trip's over 500 kilometres, and if it's a full load, and all these other parameters that it had to fall under.
Yeah.
The load under 500 kilometres wasn't covered.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of that. And then people were saying, if I take a load of cows out here for $5,000, and then, he wants me to bring back one bull, I've got to charge him $5,000. There's a load of crap. There's a lie. There's an absolute bullshit lie, right? Because under the order, right?
Yeah.
If the rates you were on before the order came in were higher than the rates order, then you were still on your higher money, right? There was a provision in the act that they couldn't drop the money if you were on a rate and the minimum rate was lower, right? That they couldn't do it. That was adverse action, and that was an offence, right? For them to drop the rate to the minimum rate.
But then wasn't there a whole argument? I mean, we're getting into the lawyer speak now, Steve. But I mean,
I mean, these are the protections that drivers didn't understand that they had. They had whistleblower protection as well, which was an adverse conduct or an adverse action if you were to file if you were to file an adverse action claim.
Yeah, but we both know, Steve. Seriously, I'm not trying to have a go at you. Now.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna play devil's advocate.
Yeah,
right?
We're talking about the what it was.
We're talking about the nuts and bolts of the way it was
Yep.
and the perceptions of it the way it was.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I was dead set against the RSRT order number 2 at the time.
A lot of people were.
100%. I was dead set against it.
Mhm.
But my opinion about it was informed not by the legal arguments, but by the realities of actually operating a truck and by the information that I had presented to me through the various media, that was the transport media and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't take the time back then to sit down and have a look at what the order and what it actually said and all the rest of it. But having said that, let me say this. If you rightly say that there was whistleblower protection in there, and I now know that that's to be true because I've had a look, right? But the reality of it is a whistleblower in this game, right, if I come out and I say, oh, fucking this happened, you know, and I got stuck and I was doing this and they said they'd give me this rate, but they didn't, and I didn't get paid for this and waited for that and bloody yap.
You'll never be back.
And made that, huh?
You'll never be back there.
You'll never be back there.
That's right.
And as soon as, and if you went to a DC somewhere and got stuck for 12 hours, and this happened to me at a DC in South Australia, I got stuck there with a company trailer. It wasn't my trailer; it was a company one I was towing at the time, with my own prime mover. I had a time slot to unload at 7 a.m. I unloaded. I was a bit late unloading. They were late unloading me. I missed my loading time slot around the other side of the same shed. Right, I got around there and they said, yeah, mate, park it over there, we'll get to you. 12 hours later, I'm still sitting there for a $750 load, right? I had another load coming out of Melbourne. I went inside, I've been inside several times. No facilities in this shit show. You can't have a shower. Yeah. You know, there's a toilet. Yep. And you might be able to make yourself a cup of coffee if the urn's working, but there's no milk. There's a bloody, a dispenser for snacks and things like very healthy stuff. So if you get there, you can't plan this sort of stuff. So I got there and I went inside and I said to the guy inside, mate, come on, fair suck of the Sev. I've been here 12 hours. Let's get this thing loaded. I need to get going. You know, I've got a job in Melbourne to do tomorrow. And they said, well, you know, we'll get to you when you get to you. I said, all right, mate, half an hour. If we're not starting half an hour, I've got to go. And they said, you'll sit there. So I went out. Half an hour later, I went back inside, told the guy I was going. Yep. I was the one with an attitude problem. Yeah. I sat there for nothing for all that time because they couldn't get their shit together.
That's right. And that's it. That's their MO. They're a mobile warehouse until, you know, they schedule the time slots.
Guess how much work I got for that company after that?
Yeah, none.
Yeah. So that's what happens to whistleblowers. Now, you and I both know that's the reality. You and I both know that you can end up at a DC in Brisbane, you know, anywhere up there. And I'm not naming names because
imagine if you got paid for every hour that you were sitting there.
Well, it'd soon make a difference to how long you sat, wouldn't it? I mean, I sat. This
is what I mean about legislative change, right?
Yeah, but
we're never gonna see an RSRT again. It wouldn't matter if 500 blokes got killed between now and here.
Yeah,
it wouldn't matter. In the next 50 days, there should be 8 more guys killed, something like that. No, maybe 3 or 4. I'm not sure. We should be up about 35 by the time we go to hearing, right? Yeah. It should be about 75 by the end of the year under normal stats, right?
Yep.
So we're nearly there. By the end of July, we should be sitting nearly 40. Right?
Yeah.
35 to 40.
And that's the historical basis of what really happens on the road every year. That's what the stats say.
That's the average.
Yeah.
That's the average over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So 545 killed in 10 years, and 112 of those were owner drivers.
Yep.
So it's statistically predictable that maybe we won't have any. Maybe the guys are going to be really lucky. Maybe all the people who drive cars aren't going to have mental problems or drug issues or drink drive or step off the footpath without looking, and all of these stuff, right? This is what we have to have 100% fatality-free industry. Every pedestrian has to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Every bike rider has to do the right thing. Every car driver has to do the right thing. And that's never going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But we can make our conditions safer by eliminating the pressure that drivers are rushing, right? Like if you can go 80 and get paid the same as what you get paid doing 100, then the likelihood of you having a high-speed accident, if you were just able to kick back doing 80, is lower, right? It's just
It stands to reason. It stands to reason.
That's right. So while drivers are getting a cents per kilometre rate for the reward, right? It's incentivized for them to go 100 kilometres an hour, right?
Oh, or as fast as they could possibly go.
That's right. But it's set on an average of about 80, 85 kilometres an hour.
That's right. 85 kilometres an hour. Yep.
So guys think that when they're doing 100, they're making money.
They're not.
But you're only making money for the first 38 hours.
Yeah.
Then you're not. You're losing your long service, you're losing your super, you're losing your entitlements, and you're working for free most of the time, as you know.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate now. I've got one of the unicorn jobs now.
Yeah.
You know, the very rare jobs as a long-distance driver where I'm being paid by the hour and I have penalty rates and all that sort of stuff.
And it's giving you time to get a podcast going.
It's given me time to get a podcast going. But the reality of it is that it's done a lot of other things too. I used to be, and look, I'll admit this in the service of what we're talking about. I used to be like Jerry, as Jerry said, I've heard him say it. I used to be one of the blokes who used to tear around with my hair on fire all the time, And if I got stuck in traffic, I was terrible. I would drive my truck fairly aggressively to make my way through the traffic at the best possible time that I could. If that meant changing lanes, I'd change lanes. If that meant, basically doing whatever I could do within my skill set to get where I needed to go as quickly as I could possibly get there. Because the fact of the matter was, I needed to rush to make the next camera time, to be where I needed to be, to get things done in the right time. It made sense for me to be places early in the morning. It made places, I used to set myself up to do all that. And I used to get angry, really angry. But these days, I sit in the traffic now and I drive the truck as safely as I possibly can. And look, to be honest, my accident record is very good. And my infringement notice record is also very good. I've had one ticket in like 20 years. But the reality of it is that for me as a person, my life now is so much better since my pay changed, and since the way I was remunerated changed, and since basically changing companies has been has been the catalyst for all that. But the fact of the matter is I can see now I've owned trucks, I've paid drivers trip money, and I've expected them to be certain places at certain times, which is the same as everyone else. I feel no guilt about what I did when I owned a truck.
Yeah,
I drove trucks for guys on trip money and all that sort of stuff, and did whatever I needed to do to get the job done, and they paid me. And I felt no guilt about doing that. And they certainly felt no guilt about paying me the way they did because they're allowed to.
Yeah.
But now I'm in the situation where I'm being paid properly. And one of the reasons why I'm coming out now and saying what I'm saying and getting on board with this whole thing is because I've experienced the difference. And I can look at the legislation as it exists, and I can look at what's going on in the industry as it exists. And I'm no expert. I can't solve all the problems, but I can save a few. And the first thing to do, let's talk about the things we need to do to change to make life better for all of us. Like you say, things like trip money, things like not being paid for demurrage, things like not being paid, which is waiting time in normal people speak, things for like being not paid held over, not being paid for public holidays and penalty rates for weekends. How many guys go to work on a Sunday afternoon, go away all week, spend all week in the truck, get home Friday night, Saturday morning, no penalty rates, no nothing, and they sit there. Now, people are going to say, oh, shit, Nick, you're starting to sound like a bloody Labor person here. Well, in this respect, maybe I am, and this is why I'm starting to be on the same page as Glenn Sterl and the same page as you.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm
No,
I'm winding myself up now, mate.
it's part of owning any machinery, right?
Yeah.
If you go and buy an excavator, right, and you want to hire it out,
Yeah.
right, when you get on site, you want to get paid from when you get on site to when you leave site, and
That's
you want to charge them the truck and the machine there and back.
Yeah.
Right? You charge them a delivery.
When you leave the depot, not when you get there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
they can't be somewhere else.
That's right. And if that machine has to be on site, if the work is shut down for whatever reason, you know, the machine's still on site. They need to pay. Right? It's just how it is. And the consumer needs to pay. And people will say, oh, you know, I don't want to pay extra for this and that. But you know, they're already paying for it. It's already in their insurance premiums, in the cost of their goods. It's already in there. So the $2 billion a year that we lose in truck crashes, right? That's $20 billion over 10 years. That's what we've lost. And people are happy for that. Not a word. You know, how many inquiries have been done about the financial losses? Zero. Because they know, and it's accepted, it's estimated for in the national budget. They're aware of it. It's in all their reports, how much it costs them in dollars and lost man hours. The 108,000 workers' compensation claims that truck drivers made over a 10-year period equated to 22,000 years of lost productivity.
Yeah.
22,000 years. I'm not going to live that long. I don't know how much productivity I put into the system at 50 hours a week for 40 years or whatever I'm going to live, right? 2,000 hours, 20,000 hours or 22,000 years of lost productivity due to injuries, just injuries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much productivity 540 guys' lives would have created, but they certainly could have done a lot better than that many killed.
I don't. To me, you know, you say that one life lost is too many, and that mantra, and I think that it probably is too many. You and I are both very close friends, and it's one of those things. It's the hardest thing. One of the hardest things I've had to deal with. The reality that you kiss your other half goodbye and you go out there and do your best, and you cannot come home through something that's not your fault. And look, we're not the only ones that are in that sort of a world. You know, police are in that sort of a world, firemen are in that sort of a world. Yeah. But they're not getting killed at the same rate we are. And unfortunately, and it's in no way a slight on them or a slight on the reality of it is, for me, that it's about time that we set up and we started doing something about it. I've heard your idea about more parking bays and some perhaps changing the names of some of these parking bays to memorials. To
name them after the guys getting killed. If there's a guy called Jason that's killed 20 k's south of somewhere, mate, put a parking bay there, call it the Jason parking bay, and make sure that there's no other trucks tipping over right there. Look, he's earned us that right. He's earned us that spot. And I mean, 2,000 spots are missing. That's what Rod says. I reckon there's probably more. Yeah.
Well, Rod Hannafy we're talking about.
Yeah, Rod Hannafy. Yeah.
Rod is one of the guys that's been around for a very long time as a road safety advocate. He runs the truck ride vehicle employed by Pillons in Dubbo.
Yeah. And he was also the first witness to the first hearing held by the Senate in November. He was the first witness on the list. So You know,
I've got a lot of time for Rod and the things that he stands for. I haven't had a hell of a lot of time to actually talk to him, and I've only met him once face to face. But you know, I've seen a lot of his work, and you know, the man needs to be applauded. And you know, from my point of view, you know, if I can only achieve half as much in the industry as he has, I'd be happy with that contribution personally. But you know, the fact is that, you know, this Park and Bay thing is something that we can address. And I'd give my commitment to you in front of all your listeners and mine that you and I are on the same page as far as that goes. And I think we should get started on that. We should try and organise some bloody Park and Bays, mate.
Well, there needs to be a Park and Bay strategy.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it's a big thing, and planting the seed in their mind, putting it in the report, you know, having all this anecdotal evidence from you and me and all these other witnesses that are going to bother to show up this time and have their say. And look, even if what they say isn't true, like to everyone else, right? Their individual story is individual just to them. It's still important because
everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, like, it's okay to sacrifice one for the many in this industry. It is. Look at how many transport companies have gone the way, been absorbed, or they've gone to auction, only for another company to absorb that fleet and take up the work and use the old trucks doing the exact same work under a different name.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so
everyone loves a good bit of phoenixing. I certainly enjoy it.
That's right. So I mean,
look, people told me I couldn't take 600,000 litres of water out the bush. I did that. I organised that in 6 weeks. Now, I had a lot of help doing it from a lot of very, very good people.
Yep.
But I tell you what, I'm prepared to spend more time than just 6 weeks doing this Park and Bay thing. Are you with me? You going to have a crack with me?
Yeah, mate. If they're gonna keep pushing it and bringing it up, but I just want people to take notice of this Senate inquiry.
Yeah.
And tell their friends and tell their workmates that, hey, this is on and it's on right now and it's coming up and you can listen live in under parliamentary privilege, right? I can say whatever I want as long as it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? I can use whatever adjectives I like, and I've learnt a few in my time. So, like I've been working on this speech to give to the Senate since November, right?
Yeah.
And we were 24 hours out from going to the hearing, and it got cancelled due to coronavirus, right? Now, since that time, whatever his name is, Mahinder Singh Bajwa, is that him? Ran over all them police officers down there in Victoria.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he had his little whoopsie, right? And I mean, that just showcases the industry right there.
Yeah.
Is a major carrier, major national carrier. Looked like a new truck, looked like a new trailer on a new road.
Yeah.
The guy wasn't very far from his home.
Yeah.
Lives in the same city. So he wasn't far away. And you know, the silence after his arrest has been
deafening.
It's been
the silence has been deafening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions there, and I mean, I had a chat with some people there the other day about licensing reform.
Oh yeah.
And mate, I mean, we could go for another hour just talking about licensing reform. And you know, Glenn, I think Glenn ended up holding the phone away from his ear when I was talking to him about it, because, you know, I could go on for hours about the need for licensing reform, and that's going to form part of my submission, my opinion on licensing and the way it's done in this country. And I think as a person that's held a heavy vehicle license since the 80s, I think I'm well qualified to comment on licensing and driving in general.
That's right.
And you know, and given that you know, my driving record is such as it is, I'm more than happy to put a print out there in front of them. You know, I think my opinion on licensing is just about as valid as anybody else's. you don't need a degree to be an expert on something.
No. But I mean, is having a clean rap sheet really much to show these days? I mean, it's something to be proud of, yeah. But do you really know what trucking is if you haven't got a $16,000 logbook fine yet? Right.
Oh, mate, no. Well,
think about it. 90 minutes is $16,000 and 4 points.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No,
But,
I'm hearing you. Fortunately for me, I run an electronic work diary these days,
yeah.
and I am not going to get cleaned up for a logbook fine.
Don't you still have to run a paper one as well, though?
I do, yeah. I do have to run a paper one as well. They've got a match. But you know, I wrote a whole bit about electronic work diaries, which was in Big Rigs, and you know, the case for and against. And there is a case against, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you want to go into that for a few minutes, we can. But I mean, the fact is that all technology is not necessarily a good thing, and all change is not necessarily good. And as I said to James Graham there the other day, the reality of it is we tend to overlay laws. We've got a law that we start off with somewhere, and then someone else thinks, oh, it's a good idea, we'll make this other rule, and they overlay that on the top. And they make another rule, and they overlay that on the top. So now you've got 3 rules all about the same thing. And the trouble with it is that people say, well, you know, you've got to obey the law. Well, you do, but which one do you obey? I mean, you're obeying the law. But on the electronic work diary, for me, I'm getting paid by the hour. The electronic work diary is a fantastic thing. It's there. It removes all the potential arithmetic cock-ups that I could possibly make. It tells me when I need to have a break. It tells me how many hours I've done for the week. It tells me how many night hours. It does the
thinking for you.
It does all the thinking for me, and it's a great reasonable steps defence. So if there ever is a cock-up, right, I'd be quite happy to go to court with the printout records and say, well, listen, this is what we did, and this is why we thought we were right. Now, I may in fact still end up with a fine to break the law, but at least at the end of the day, you'd contest it and you could say, well, we've done everything we could possibly do. And some people are going to fall foul no matter what. But the reality of it is that, you know, you've got to take reasonable steps to try and make sure everything's going right. The problem with the electronic logbook is that there've been law in the US now for a while, and Overdrive magazine, which is sort of basically the equivalent of Owner Driver and Trucking Life here in Australia, for those of you who don't know, they have written several articles detailing the facts that their accident rates have actually gone up, and their compliance levels have actually gone down, since the introduction of logbooks, the electronic logbooks. And the reason why, and as other people, as people are listening with and analysing what we're saying right now, would say, well, if all these things are happening, then you haven't been doing it legal with the paper logbooks in the first place. And I suppose that's a fair observation. The wages of drivers have gone down since they've gone on with these electronic logbooks, because they're on trip money. They're not no longer being paid for what they do. They're being paid for what the logbook says they can do. Now, the logbook is a one-size-fits-all solution, and I accept that there has to be some line in the sand somewhere. That's always been my position. There has to be a line in the sand, and the logbook says that's what it is. The electronic logbook tells the driver what he's done, but he also tells operations what he does. Now, the upside of it is if we have guys that are working with electronic logbooks and they now no longer can sit at a DC for 4 hours because it's going to affect their run on the next leg, sooner or later, that's going to cause a certain amount of pain, and the waiting time's going to have to be addressed. I mean, that's a logical progression of the discussion. But in the meantime, the guy that's actually doing that's losing money because he's sitting there for free, he's on trip money. So his pay goes down. And then there's the parking bay issue. So if we all get to the point where all we can do now is, instead of getting from Melbourne all the way into Sydney, we can now only get to Goulburn or Marulan or Sutton Forest, then how many 100 trucks can you park in those places? And there's a bloody limit, and it's not very many. So, you know, everyone's going, you know. So the people are saying, oh, well, we need we need the electronic logbook to improve road safety. Well, fucking hang on. Don't get the cart before the horse. In order for blokes to be safe, you need to have all these other things that are in place first to support that electronic logbook idea. And people can't, for some reason or another, that escapes the comprehension of some people.
Well, I mean, the work diary is nothing to do with fatigue.
Yeah.
The work diary has nothing to do with keeping safe. Nothing at all. It isn't. It is. It's a book.
It's a sarcastic laugh, mate. I'm not laughing.
It's a book that you are to fill out the way they tell you to fill it out, and if you don't fill it out the way they tell you to fill it out, then you'll get a fine. It has nothing to do with how tired you are. It's nothing to do with how much fatigue you have. Yeah. It doesn't even have anything to do with how much work you've done.
The problem that I've always had with the logbook is you've got to pay for the bloody thing yourself, and yes, it is tax deductible, but you have to pay for it, and then you have to go ahead and generate the evidence that they use to issue you with a fine.
That's right.
And the fines are bloody eye-watering.
Yeah.
Eye-watering, as you've said.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate.
Go and have a look at that. Go and have a look at that driver's rights and responsibilities under Section 570 on my channel. You have no rights as a responsible person under the HNVL. As a responsible person, you can be compelled to answer questions. You do not have the right to remain silent. Yeah. Remaining silent is an offence under the Act.
Well, as soon as the trouble with it is, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, from our point of view, as a heavy vehicle driver, we get wheeled in to be checked. We've got no say. Our personal possessions can be turned out. Our inside of our vehicle can be swabbed. They can put a dog inside your vehicle.
Yeah, they can take your blood. They can do all kinds of things. They
can take your blood. They can do all this shit without a warrant.
Yeah,
and our reasonable. I don't think we have any reasonable rights, just simply because we're driving a truck. And what I can't understand.
We don't even have favourable conditions of work. We've got a parliamentary report written by Philip Ruddock that says that they removed our human rights to favourable conditions of work. Now, look, I don't think a death a week's favourable.
No, neither do I.
But if you and I joined the army and went to Afghanistan for 10 years we're in Afghanistan, they had 96 guys killed in 10 years. We had 550% higher fatality rate here in Australia, serving Australia domestically.
Yeah. You won't get an argument out of me, mate.
No.
We're on the same page in a lot of it.
Well, we just gotta get people upset enough, say enough controversial things, make people outraged enough to open a simple email to the Senate and spew their feelings out in words and press send, and then get an invite to go to a hearing and then turn up and they say, what capacity do you appear? And you say, I'm a pissed off truck driver, or I'm a happy person, or whatever it is, right? And then point to the words and emphasize it and go on record, and then, bolster everyone else. The accumulation of all these voices has great strength.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to be adding mine to the case. So that's my commitment. So,
well, there'll be a hearing down your way in Sydney. They'll have one there. They're going to have one here in Brisbane first, he said. So, and so that's more content for my channel. In that each witness that goes along, whatever they say, it won't be lost in the ether. You won't go onto Hansard and search the date and search the transcript to find what this person said to see if you agree with them or not. Just go into my channel and listen, and you go, oh yeah, well, what they're saying makes sense, or he's full of shit or whatever, and then at least the information's out there, because once this newspaper's finished and it's online, like, I don't know where I'm going to get most of my information. I'm not interested in press releases. Do you get them? Do you get press releases to keep up on what's going on?
Oh, mate, every day I just listen to, I spend my whole working day looking at press releases, mate. That's what I do, you know. That's the problem. That's part of the problem.
I spend my day searching the internet for truck crashes because they don't just fall into your lap. You have to look for them. They don't just come across your Facebook.
Yeah.
They're very sneaky at not reporting them, because if they don't report them, they don't record them.
Yeah.
Under Safe Work Australia, they count their fatalities through media reports, right?
Well, the NTI guy that I listened to at the webinar said that he had difficulty, and he focused on actually getting the data because it's in his business's interest to have all the data, and he struggled to get the data himself. And he's one of these guys that knows where to look. So
I've got the list of his references.
Yeah.
So for this report, for his references, the Australian Bureau of Statistics Consumer Price Index Inflation Calculator, the Australian Bureau of Statistics Motor Vehicle Census, the Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics Australian Road Desk Database, the Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Economics Data on Heavy Vehicle Involved Multiple Vehicle Crashes, Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Economics Road Trauma Australia 2018 Statistical Summary, Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics Yearbook 2019 Australian Infrastructure Statistics, Department of Planning, Transport and Infrastructure Data on Heavy Vehicle Involved Multiple Vehicle Crashes, Department of Transport and Main Roads Queensland, Data on Heavy Vehicle Involved Multiple Vehicle Crashes, Australia Transport and Topography Product Description Version, Transport New South Wales Traffic Volume Viewer, Transport of New South Wales Data on Heavy Vehicle Involved Multiple Vehicle Crashes, Main Roads WA Data on Vehicle Involved Multiple Vehicle Crashes, Main Roads WA Traffic Data, Vic Roads Crash Stats User Guide, and the Vic Roads Crash Stats Data Extract.
Wow.
So it's not just their claims.
No, there's no way you can just go and get the information and go, that's the number.
No, but it's not just NTI's insurance claims.
No.
He went through as much as he could.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to assess the risk.
Well,
so, and the risk is real.
But I mean, you add up the road toll, right? You take out the road toll, then you add the guys getting killed by object, hit by object, loading and unloading, crush deaths, all these other ones. The guy that got exploded over there in WA, cutting the nitropril, right? He was running away. He was 2 kilometres from the crash, right? He'd managed to get 2,000 metres from the crash, but was still killed in the explosion because the explosion killed him. So then you got the guy that died from exposure up in South Australia there.
Yeah.
Right. So he's still getting exposure deaths. And so, like you said, but they're a bit of an anomaly. You don't get guys blowing up every day.
No.
But
that's two individuals out of 200 something others.
That's right.
Yeah, it's mate, I'd love to keep talking, but I have somewhere else I've got to be very soon. So
thanks for your conversation.
Mate, look, thanks for having me. And I'll be putting this up on my podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking about this more down the track, and you and I are going to get together and we are going to talk about this more. And I'm going to be talking to Glenn again next week about my submission. And I will see you at the inquiry, no doubt.
We'll be there.
And I'll be able to shake a few hands of fellas I only know from seeing them on telly and seeing them on the internet and things. And
we just got to agitate them. Just got to agitate them to send in an email. Want to get on the witness list. Want to make some trouble. We're looking for the troublemakers out there. We don't want all these church mice. We want the militant truck drivers that are sick of all this crap and want to come along and look. Some of us are going to make some noise about it.
Yeah,
not just going to wallflower at this time.
Yeah, we need some reasoned conversation and some people to point out some realistic bloody solutions.
Yeah. Well, either
And,
way, we're gonna enter the minds of these senators, and we're gonna lay the seeds of destruction, or we're gonna lay the seeds of the way out.
Good. Great to talk with you, mate. You take
Thanks,
care out
Mike.
there.
You
and
too,
I'll
matey.
catch up with you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.